And we're back for Thursday. A little off kilter this week, Tuesday, Thursday, instead of, Monday, Wednesday like we normally do. But we're here making it happen. I was traveling Monday, went to DC, and then last night we had some folks here in town. I actually shot a segment for a movie yesterday that you guys will see later this year. So pretty cool. It's about money, the transition from seashells and barter all the way to gold coins and gold and silver, and how that's been money for 5,000 years, and now the transition to digital currencies away from the fiat system that we have today. So excited about that. The group that came out and did that, I think they got a lot of value. We're in a very unique position here in Dallas with the office. Right across from some other people that are prominent people in Dallas and the blockchain space. So we were able to pull them in, and they were able to get in the movie too, which is pretty cool. Different insights from different folks, a lot of people that have, a lot of knowledge in the industry that are able to articulate that pretty well. And so I think that it'll end up being I say movie. It's really kind of like a multiple show series that'll end up on multiple streaming channels. So excited about that. Should be airing late this year, early 2026. A lot of other stuff going on. I don't know if you guys saw or not, but I don't know if this has been it's coming from some credible sources. So I've seen that we've got a Solana ETF from Fidelity that's been approved for tomorrow, and then also Canary Capital for their XRP ETF that's been approved for tomorrow. Is that true? Is it false? I don't know. The people that are putting it out, pretty credible. They normally don't put out BS. So I'm excited for that. I really do hope that it is the real deal, and we get some of the much needed price appreciation on things. Everything looks like it's ready to rip here on the chart. What I've been looking at is XRP versus Bitcoin, and then also Bitcoin dominance. If you want to go check those charts out, there's always a rotation out of Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin dominance chart tends to be where you see that start to happen. I'm going to look at it on the daily here. The daily, you're hanging on by a thread here at the top of this pattern, and it looks like it's about to break down substantially. So if we do get that and we get a rotation into the altcoins, I bet a lot of that liquidity would flow into those two ETFs that get approved. If they have been approved and actually go live tomorrow, the DTCC is listing both of those. So I haven't seen that the S1s have been approved by the SEC. That's yet to be seen. You would think that they would have to approve those before the DTCC would list them. Maybe that came out and I just missed it today. Had a very busy day. Multiple people meeting with us here in Dallas, working through their estate plan, large allocations to XRP. It's really cool. It's nice to have people fly into the office or fly into Dallas and then meet at the office. Some of them bring their family. Most people do. Most people bring at least a couple of family members with them. And you get to hear their stories and what they want to do with the wealth on the other side of price appreciation. That's the cool part that I really kind of want to focus on. I talk about the dog chasing the car in that metaphor, right? Like there's a lot of people that know they need or want a lot of money. But the ones that are going to make it last are the ones that have a mission, the ones that are going to be stewards of that capital and take care of it and put it together in a way where they've got a mission for that money that they need to preserve it for. If you're just going to use it for lifestyle and burn through it, there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to say that too. Like, if that's your goal, is just to live the most awesome life, period, and then like die spending your last dollar, there's nothing wrong with that. However, you don't really know when you're going to die. And I would think if you were blessed with 50, $100 million, you know, it's a lot more money than you really like. You can only buy so many things. About $20 million worth of stuff is really like how much you can buy before you, like, what else are you going to spend it on? You're going to have multiple homes at that point. You're going to have multiple nice cars. You probably have some watches or like other high end luxury things. You probably have some nice clothes. You've probably been on some pretty good vacations. But like, what are you going to do with the rest of that money? You know what I mean? And that's where the philanthropic component comes in. That's where, you know, you can really make an impact for other people and create value in society. This person said, I'd spend it on other people. That's what I'm talking about, man. You find ways to improve the quality of life for other people. You solve problems for society. You create solutions that outlive you and build a legacy. And, you know, some people want their name spoken for a long time. You got Carnegie Hall and Carnegie Mellon University. You have people that make donations or set up large libraries or universities so that their name continues to be spoken and they're having an impact for a long time, giving back that way. You have other people that set up charities. You know, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Zuckerberg has a foundation. Almost everybody that has billions of dollars has a foundation for multiple reasons. A lot of people that I've been talking to here recently have been looking for, you know, charitable remainder trusts. They've been talking about DAFs or donor advised funds, setting up a foundation, you know, public charity or private foundation. There's a lot of things that go into that. 501c, there's like 80 something different types of nonprofits that you can set up. Most people are familiar with 501c3. Okay. But the 501c8 is an association. That's what sororities use. It's what brotherhoods use. And there's a bunch of different ones depending on what you want to do and the impact that you want to have. So you want to work with somebody that understands how to structure all that stuff and follow that the right way. Those do take a little bit longer to get up and going. So there's a gentleman that reached out to me earlier today, and he wants to set up a charitable remainder trust because he heard Mark Kohler talk about that, which is a great option. If you're looking to cash out your crypto and you do want to leave an impact or make an impact, a charitable remainder trust is a great way to go about it. You can't hold crypto in a charitable remainder trust, though. So what you would do, ideally, if you wanted the use of those funds to be able to make an impact, is you would actually set up a foundation first or a public charity first, because you have to name the charitable component or where you're going to be making the donations out of the charitable remainder trust at the time that you set it up. Okay, so these are things people don't know until they get into the process of things, but you want to go ahead and set up, if you want the use of the funds and you understand, like, look, I want to make an impact in my community or I have this cause, and you might have a charity that you already want to work with, right? Like, that's great. But if you want much more control, so a public charity takes donations from other private foundations and other people, and then they do public good with that. It's a lot more transparent with a public charity versus a private foundation. A private foundation is required to donate a minimum of 5% of the proceeds that it holds each year to public charities and other philanthropic focuses. But the private foundation, you know, you can put your family members as people on the board for that. They can choose who that money goes to. The other cool thing about a charity is you can do R&D inside of a charity. You can get donations from other people to be able to do research and development for specific technologies. Nonprofits can own for-profit companies, but no for-profit can own a charity. When you're making donations to a nonprofit, a private foundation, you can donate up to 30% of your income each year in cash, 20% per year of your income in kind. So if you did want to donate crypto to your foundation, you absolutely can. It's just only 20% of your income each year if it's a private foundation. If it's a public charity that you set up, then you can donate up to 60% of your income in cash and 30% in kind. So these are not like, these are hard numbers. These are the things that are out there. If you're here in the US, I know, abroad, there's other regulations. These are the things that I'm familiar with and working with people to set things up here in the US, right? So if you're in the UK, Australia, Singapore, South America, Southeast Asia, any of those jurisdictions, Europe, it's going to be different on the philanthropic side of things. And again, we have professionals in those jurisdictions to be able to help you with that stuff. And it is a great way to be able to mitigate taxes and do a lot of good for your community or whatever cause is on your heart. But I would say that's the commonality across everybody that, well, not everybody, but most everyone I talk to that owns significant amounts of XRP, they want to do well for themselves and their family, obviously, right? They're not gluttonous or egotistical. They're not flamboyant. They're not trying to, buy the Lambo. They might rent one for a day and race it and have a good time, but they're not trying to be chauvinistic or draw a lot of attention to themselves. But they do really want to leave an impact and a legacy through philanthropic means. And most family offices, like when you have $100 million, $1 billion, that's what you do. Again, after about 20 million, you've probably bought all the stuff that you're going to be able to like buy or would want to buy, or places you would want to go. And if you've got that park somewhere earning you 5% a year, you're making $1 million a year just in income. You're living pretty good in almost anywhere in the world. If you're making $1 million a year, a top 1% earner globally, I think is actually, well, here in the US, I know it's $600,000. I don't know what it is globally. But you're far inside the top 1% if you're earning $1 million a year. And, even if you're living on either coast or in a high-end city, you're still going to be living pretty well. You're going to have a good, comfortable life with that type of income. And the rest of it, you can put to work in other means. You can invest it. Donor advised funds are interesting. If you guys haven't ever looked at that as a philanthropic way to be able to donate or actually invest in private equity in businesses that are working on some type of technology or are working on an initiative that is in alignment with your mission for your family office or your foundation, right? So if they're developing a cure for cancer, and obviously that could be a for-profit business that's doing that, you can make a donation to them. It's not a donation, you're actually investing in the company. And if there's a return on the company, when there's a liquidity event, that money would be rolled back into the fund and then could be used for other philanthropic purposes. Endowments are a hack that a lot of really wealthy people use. If you look at Harvard, Yale, all these large universities, they also, use endowments. They're able to invest in private equity and all these other things. And because it's a philanthropic, I don't know what the 501c type of 501c these are. I think I'd have to look. But with an endowment, you trade tax free. So let's say you have a huge liquidity event, you put it in private equity. When you sell that private equity and roll it into the next one, no taxes. That's how they compound so quickly, and they get to be managing, I think Harvard's like I don't want to say $1 trillion, but maybe it is. It's pretty close to it if it's not. Anyway, large amounts of money can be aggregated because you're not paying taxes when you have these liquidity events from your investments, right? Ripple definitely paying you an XRP. I wish, dude. Charlie, if you can make that happen over here on TikTok, if you can call Brad and get him to pay me an XRP, I would. Please. It would be great. I don't know if they've got that deal out there for anybody, but I'd love to have it. It'd be great if that was the case. But unfortunately, we have real businesses and provide real value, and that's how we actually make money over here. We don't get anything from Ripple. It'd be great if we did, though. I would take it if they would pay me. But back to the charitable remainder trust, because I think this is a common misconception. I squirreled off on that earlier. If you make a donation of your crypto to a charitable remainder trust, which sounds great, the charitable remainder trust has to sell that crypto. It's too risky. It's too volatile. It doesn't fit the investment parameters that are required inside of a charitable remainder trust. They're very conservative. It has to be mutual funds, money market stuff. There has to be a certain diversification standard that's met within that. And it has to be yield bearing so that on an annual basis or quarterly basis, you can pay out dividends to yourself. There's two types of charitable remainder trust. One that pays you first and then the charity second. And the other way is the other way around. It pays the charity first and then pays you second. But you do get a lot of tax benefits. So let's say, you know, your XRP, Bitcoin, whatever you got, goes to $1 million. You donate it in kind. Don't sell it first because you're going to deal with the taxes first if you do it. Donate it in kind, whatever amount it is, to the charitable remainder trust. Hopefully, again, you've set up a foundation before you set up the charitable remainder trust so that you get all the benefits here. But you donate it in kind, and then the charitable remainder trust would sell the assets and get the cash to then structure it the right way. If you sell it before you donate it to the trust, you have to pay the taxes on that, and you get the write-off, but it doesn't work out as well as you would hope it would. So I hope that in the future, if it's, I think XRP will be a tier 1 asset. I think that it'll be much more stable later on, and it'll probably be a riskless investment in the eyes of the investment banks, you know, like gold and U.S. Treasuries. And if that ends up being the case, I'm sure that your charitable remainder trust will be able to hold XRP, maybe even XLM or some of these other ones later on after we have full clarity. They're used and they're a high stable value. So if you're going to play that game, I would, you know, maybe wait. I would encourage you to look at setting up the foundation first, a foundation, a private foundation, or a public charity. Private foundations are much easier to manage and have a lot less red tape versus a public charity. But to each their own, right? Like everybody has different goals and they want different outcomes. So, you know, I've been rambling on for the first 20 minutes here, letting people join in because we did not, you know, put this out. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it tonight. Do have personal stuff going on. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that's reached out and said they're praying for me and my family. It really does mean a lot. So thank you for everybody that's reached out and held us in their prayers. And yeah, life's not always easy. Bad things happen. And you have to deal with them, right? So, but anyway, I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody on that. And with that, we'll go ahead and hop into the questions here. I'm sure you guys have them burning. A lot of people have been asking about the ETFs over here. From what I can tell, they're real. From what I can tell, we're going to get the Solana ETF and the XRP ETF that are, you know, both Fidelity for Solana and then Canary Capital for XRP listed on DTCC tomorrow. I still haven't seen the approval via the S1s that have been filed by the SEC. And so until I have like actual approval from the SEC, I'm skeptical. But, you know, a lot of really good sources are putting out that those have been approved and will be listed on the DTCC tomorrow. So if that's the case, you know, we'll see who picks them up and list them on their platform. It still takes a little bit more time. Even if they're going to list them on the DTCC, you have to have other people, you know, be able to list them for trading. And then I'm really confident, like if somebody gets through on an XRP ETF that's a spot ETF, BlackRock is right behind them. So we'll see what shakes out for that. But that's just my opinion. We get Off the Grid Hero. They say create trust first, then LLCs, personals in trust. That's another good question and stuff that I look at often. So when it comes to which one to do first, you could be doing 3 different entities at the same time. And you would say, well, why would you want to do that? You probably, well, you would want an LLC inside your trust because it provides a credit chassis. Banks will loan to businesses. They don't loan to trusts. Well, they will, but it makes it much easier if there's a business inside the trust. So you can build credit with the LLC inside the trust. It provides a great credit chassis. You can manage the assets through the LLC and pay yourself as the manager of the LLC inside the trust. That's another way that you can protect things, but also manage them still. But you likely will want an LLC outside of your trust. And you might say, well, why would I want that? Well, Any income produced inside of a trust that's not some like common law, crazy, wild thing that is illegal. If you're operating under normal laws, okay, anything over $15,000 in income inside of a trust is going to be taxed at 37.5%. It's pretty steep. It's not fun. Okay. What we see a lot of people do is they'll put maybe, kind of 50-50, or it could be more than that, depending on how closer or how old you are. The closer you think you are to death, and again, everybody's mortality is different. Everybody has different time frame. I'm not going to give like specific information or knowledge here, but like everybody's different. So, but let's say you're close to retirement. You probably would put more of the assets in the trust if you're closer to retirement, because you want those to compound and grow inside the trust where they're protected and will pass on. But you want to leave a portion in the LLC because you can pass the taxes from the trust to the LLC. And the income, whatever threshold it was for the trust, like let's say it was, $240,000, right, that you made inside the trust. Well, instead of paying 37.5% inside the trust, you pass those taxes to the LLC, and now the LLC would only pay like 28% taxes. So it's not huge, but you can still use, expenses and other stuff to be able to write that off on the LLC outside the trust. And over time, if you're paying taxes for the trust through the LLC, and if you did have to sell off assets, you're always liquidating assets from the LLC that's outside the trust. The assets inside the trust are compounding at a much faster rate because you're not having to pay taxes on those, right? Again, back to the endowment example I gave earlier. Any way that you can mitigate taxes, best thing since sliced bread. That is going to be your largest expense in most jurisdictions. So, and I want to say this, I'm as hopeful as everybody else is that the IRS just goes away. Okay. I would love it if we woke up tomorrow and the Fed got removed, the IRS is gone, and we all have a flat tax that's a value added tax. It's like 10 or 15% on anything that aren't necessities here in the US. Okay. I'm all for that. However, I have to operate under the tax code that exists today. Okay. And we work with professionals that literally have doctorates in tax law. Like that's their whole career, is they understand the tax code and they find all the, I want to say loopholes, but ways that you can legally mitigate taxes. Okay. And they will structure things the right way with your estate planning and how you spend your money and what you can do to be able to offset your income so that you don't owe anything. Trump paid what was like $500 for taxes the one year, and Hillary, when he was going against her, like made that into a bad thing on TV. And he was like, all the people that you brought in made the tax code, and I just follow along with that. Like I'm using the laws that you guys created, just like you do. There's reasons that the IRS makes things the way that they do. They want to incentivize spending in the economy. They want to generate additional GDP, and they want to create value. And when you do that, if you pay other people, if you are a large business, you get a lot of tax rebates, right? Like there's a lot of reasons Amazon doesn't pay a whole lot of taxes. Same thing on the states. And here's the other piece. The other people that have all the money, which you guys are going to, okay? Like you're going to have a lot of money and value because of the investments that you've made in digital assets. You're going to have the ability to move. You've seen all the people that left New York and left California because of the tax regimes in those states. When you're wealthy, you have choice. And you have to incentivize people to want to stay somewhere and create economic value and do business and commerce to increase your GDP and provide jobs for other people. So, look, I don't have all the answers. I want the standard of living to come up. I want to go back to a gold standard currency and people to have like a real way to save their money and get ahead and be paid in real money that's not just inflated away, so that they can actually buy a home and buy eggs and all the other things that you need to live and don't have to work 3 jobs to do it. The crux of that is our money. If they would just back it with gold again and fix it, we would be good to go. But you know, they want to point to minimum wage and all of these other things as like the reason for it, when in reality, if they would just go back to a sound money, we'd be good to go. So that's what I want to see happen, and I think that would fix the majority of the inequality. It's not going to fix everything. Okay, there is no fix everything, wave a magic wand. And even if you did, and this is controversial, but I'll say it anyway. If you distributed all the money evenly across everybody in the US, within 10 years, all the money would be back in the top 1%'s hands, because they understand how to create value and produce things. And if you're a consumer, like most Americans, you spend money. You're not making all of that money, and you're just not taught that, right? Like most people aren't taught in school how to do all these things, or that, like on the social media, I spend, I don't know, maybe an hour or two a day on social media, responding to comments when I can, and also consuming social media because I want to understand what's going on. I want to see what's out there, and I doom scroll just a little bit, just like everybody else does. But I would say the output of social media that I have is significantly higher than what I consume. And if you did that with everything that you're doing, you would be lean and fit. You're going to be burning off more calories than you're ingesting. If you're creating more value than you're consuming, you're always going to be in a successful position. Most people don't do that, though. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying if you flip that paradigm, we have a really productive society, like a really, really productive society. So anyway, I'm rambling on here. We'll go ahead and get on to the next one. But I would set up the LLC first because it's much faster. I would set up your trust second. Living trust and asset protection trust and a spendthrift trust and a dynasty trust and an insurance trust. There's like 88 or 87 different types of trusts. Right. So you need to work with somebody that understands your specific objectives, what you want to accomplish. Most centimillionaires and billionaires that we work with have somewhere between 7 and 9 trusts set up. And they're all for different purposes. Some of them are in multiple jurisdictions. They own different types of assets. There's a lot of reasons that you would set up different types of structures for different reasons. So again, you know, as your wealth grows, you want to work with professionals that understand all those different types of trusts and all the different tools that exist to be able to accomplish whatever you're looking to accomplish. But the LLC is always kind of the starting point. It gives you the most flexibility. It gives you, you know, it's the jumping off point for anything else, whether that is a donation to a foundation or a charitable remainder trust or setting up insurance policies or setting up trusts. It's always the starting point. Let's see here. We got Trades. Thank you for the super chat, my man. He says, hey, Mr. Claver, I got a question. If you move all your moves, if value moves on the XRP, how does it make XRP's price go up? Please explain like I'm 5 in simple words. Okay, that's yeah. Supply and demand, sir. So I don't know if you ever took economics, but I've shown my son, like there's supply on the bottom and demand over here. And when you draw the two lines, as supply goes down and demand comes up, there's a point where those intersect, and that's the price that's on the other side of the chart for what something is. So as there is more volume of transactions on a ledger that are needing XRP to be able to facilitate the value transfer of that money or value between two counterparties, that's demand. And if supply is constricted for what's available out there on the market, you would see the price rise. However, I will give that a caveat there. And the caveat is you need enough value in XRP to even start using it to settle. And that's where I think people get like a little bit off kilter. A lot of people are like, well, Swift's going to adopt it and it's going to go to the moon. No, Swift can't adopt XRP until there's enough value in XRP for them to start using it. So that's why I think the ETFs are such a big deal, especially the spot ETF, because that's going to drive the supply shock for XRP and drive the price high enough where they can then start to utilize it. Once it's moving value on the network and there's enough volume and demand, continual demand for it, it'll hold that price. And people get mad when XRP holds its price at $3 because they want it to go to 100 or 50 or 1,000. But it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's pretty darn stable. There's not huge volatile swings in the price. This person says it's 49,000 XRP. Okay, crushing it, Mad Mexican. If you have 50 or 100,000 XRP, like you're doing really good. You're doing really good. It's 150 grand in it right now. If it's 50,000 XRP, if you got 100,000 XRP, you got $300,000 invested in something. Like you should give yourself a pat on the back. Most people never even get to $100,000 of investment. 10% of the U.S. citizens own the stock. And there might be more than that through a 401k, but I mean, like, actually invest their money. 10% of Americans ever get to that point. So for you to have 150,000 XRP or 100,000 XRP, or hell, even 20,000 XRP, to have $60,000 invested in something, like, you're doing really good. Now, we have minimums and other stuff, and I know people get like downtrodden on that, and they're like, I don't have enough to work with you. We would love to work with anybody to set up their estate. Okay. We normally, recommend what the professionals we work with recommend is at least somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in digital assets before you set up the LLC. And the reason is you could spend that $2,000 investing and buying more digital assets below that, and you probably get a better return on that money. Once you get to the $50,000 to $80,000 mark and you think things are going to go, 10, 20, 50, 100x from wherever you're investing, now you're going to be able to mitigate taxes and save a bunch of money because it's in the LLC beforehand. You're going to have seasoned bank accounts. You're going to be, there's peace of mind. You're not going to be rushing around afterwards. You get the anonymity, you get the creditor protection. Like, it's kind of like insurance. You know what I mean? Like, pay your car insurance, pay your house insurance, pay your medical insurance. If something bad happens or something really cool happens with XRP, you're covered, right? So anyway, back to how this works. It's supply and demand that'll drive price high, and then the volume of payments on the network will be what sustains it and has continued demand to be able to support a high stable value for XRP. Let's see here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight, taking time out of your Thursday. We got Off the Grid Hero. He says, "Correct touch." Oh, we already did this one. It always kicks me up in the chat. It's already doing that tonight. We got Luffy. What's going on? He says, "Jake, thank you for coming. Love and pray for you and your family. Are you doing okay?" I'm doing good. I'm blessed, man. I'm super blessed. My family's blessed. Try to have gratitude in all situations. Some things aren't always fun, but they are part of life, unfortunately. So I thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the kind words, and for the super chat. Off the Grid Hero says, advice to New York and Connecticut crypto holders, taxes, man, damn, move. Like what I just talked about, there's a reason that so many people have moved away from New York and from California because of the tax regime in those states. And they're like, California and New York are going to come after you if you move also. I would set up a Wyoming LLC. You're going to have to file reciprocity with most of those states. So you're still going to get taxed in that state because it's a pass-through entity. But you're going to get all the other benefits, the anonymity. If you filed an LLC in either one of those states, you're not going to get any anonymity. You're not going to get the benefit of the regulations around digital assets. You're not going to get the creditor protection that you would get in Wyoming or Nevada or South Dakota. It's just not as robust there. So anyway, there's a lot of reasons we establish most of the entities that we set up for people, if they are domestic to the US in Wyoming. We'll do international stuff as well. We can do British Virgin Islands, we can do Caymans, we can do Bermuda, We can do Jordan. We can do Portugal. We can do Dubai. We can do Switzerland. We work with professionals globally to be able to establish things. So if you want to move out of the US, you can. We also have a partnership with Nomad Capitalist. If you want to renounce your citizenship, highly recommend you do that before you get really wealthy. If you're trying to get out of here and not, pay the 40% exit tax before, because the US will get theirs. They will come get you. They have 10 years to do it after you leave. So, and it does take like at least 12 months most of the time to renounce your US citizenship. It is a long, arduous process in order to be able to do that. Most other jurisdictions are residency-based taxes. So like the UK and Australia, anything under the crown, you're going to be taxed while you're living there. If you move away, there's some pretty strict guidelines about how much time you can spend in the country. Otherwise, you're going to be taxed there again. But as long as you follow those, you're good. Also learned a lot about Panama last night, talking to the gentleman that was at dinner with me and shot the movie or the TV series, whatever it's going to be. Panama is very interesting. I would encourage you guys to go check that out and look into that, about the U.S. treaty that they have and the benefits of Panama. And then also Puerto Rico. But a lot of people have exploited Puerto Rico at this point. The infrastructure is not so great there either. So if you can't afford your own water and like geothermal energy or a backup generator, when a hurricane hits, you go weeks without electricity or water. So that's not fun. And you do have to stay there at least 6 months and a day out of the year in order to get the tax benefit in Puerto Rico. And you also don't get to vote because it's a U.S. territory if you're living there. So for some people, that's worth it. For a lot of people, it's not. But it is, flat income tax of 4%, no capital gains. And that's why you've seen a ton of crypto millionaires kind of flock over there to Puerto Rico and drive up the real estate costs and everything else that's going on. We got Cedric. What's going on? He says, Cedric, you got your name on here, man. Don't tell people how much XRP you got. I got 1,200 XRP. Should I keep buying or move to XLM, HBAR, XDC? What do you think about Songbird? You're not going to get this answer from other people. I think diversification is a hedge against ignorance. So if you're new to this space, and ignorance is not a bad thing, okay? I don't say that in a condescending way. It literally just means you don't know about something, okay? There are people that use it in a negative context. I don't. I am ignorant about a lot of things. I know a lot about a few things. I'm really good at those, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm completely ignorant on. But when it comes to crypto, I am not ignorant. I have a very deep understanding of this asset class and XRP and those other assets you mentioned. I've met with the teams, many of the founders, people that are developing on those networks, banks, institutions, other people that are going to leverage that technology. And so for me, I don't own anything other than XRP. Super bullish on XLM, HBAR, and XTC. Love all those projects. I think that they're going to have fantastic returns for people, and there's going to be a bunch of benefits in society because of those, but I still don't own them. So take that with a grain of salt. Probably a good time for my disclaimer. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. If you need financial advice, you should reach out to a financial advisor for them to provide that for you. You should always consult with one of those before making any financial decisions. Also, all of the opinions that I state on here are my opinions and mine alone. They are not opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners, our SEC registered RIA and family office. There we go. My disclaimer's out of the way. So, up to you, my man. I also don't know your long-term goals. I don't know your time horizon. I don't know your risk tolerance. I don't know. There's so many things that I don't know that I can't give you a good answer for where you should put your money. That's why a financial advisor is so key. And I know that's kind of like a cop-out, or it might feel that way, but I don't know you from Adam, my man. I know my situation really well, right? And I know why I'm invested the way that I am. And I'll give you those reasons. Maybe that'll help you kind of think through things. So I'm in my mid-30s. I have a very long time horizon until I retire. I have a very high risk tolerance. I have good cash flow and other income with disposable income to be able to invest in things. So it's not like I'm not going to make rent next month if XRP doesn't explode. Okay. Um, I don't know what your situation is. You may have all those things, and then it's probably a good idea to do what I'm doing. If you are 65 years old and you have a pension and you're retired, and this is the extra money off of Social Security that you're getting, that you're investing, probably not a great idea to invest every extra dollar that you have over here, right? All because it's risky. I'm very confident in things. You might get on here and listen to me and be like, well, he knows. Please do not base your investment thesis off of what I say. I know no matter what I say, people are still going to do that. But at the end of the day, you're making your own choices. Okay. I can get on here and talk until I'm blue in the face. And I do want to give people confidence if they want confidence in something, because I have had the conversations to be very confident in my position and only own XRP. But at the same time, as a fiduciary and somebody that, again, looks at all these variables and works with clients to be able to give them my honest opinion on things, I have to state all of the previous stuff as well. So you do you. I hope that you're successful in whichever of those you invest in. But I'm glad you're here and you're doing better than 99.99999% of people just owning any XRP. We got Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Jayhawk, what's going on, man? He says, thank you again for all the knowledge you provide for the community. Absolutely, man. Look, I have had the privilege to speak with very high-level professionals and be able to garner a lot of this knowledge. And because of the access I have conversations at depth about all these different topics and learn enough to be dangerous. Okay. I am not the end-all be-all. There's going to be stuff that I say that is wrong. You can go Google it, go look it up. I guarantee there's something I've said tonight that's wrong. Okay. But things also are changing. And it's difficult to stay up with everything all at the same time. And that's why I partner with professionals that do. And that's all they do. If they're philanthropic focused, that's all they do. If they are CPAs that deal with crypto, that's all they do. If they're accounting that deals with crypto, that's all they do. Our wealth management firm, that's all they do is crypto. We're about to, get into traditional finance, and I'll make a cool announcement about that in the near future. We also are going to have a webinar on the 22nd that we'll put out for you guys if you are an accredited investor. And I know, look, not everybody's accredited. You don't have the income. You don't have the net worth yet. But if you meet that status on September 22nd, we would love to have you on the webinar. We're going to talk about accredited investors investing in crypto. We're going to talk about, how it's kind of correlated to like liquid venture, the risk profiles, the returns, potential returns, ways to be able to loop assets and do some different things that you're not able to do with traditional assets, things that have been tokenized. We talked to a group today about tokenizing private equity and REITs and private credit and a whole marketplace for all of this stuff. There's some people building some really cool things with AI and blockchain, and the innovation that's going to come to market over the next 24 months, I think is going to blow people's mind when it comes to DeFi and the merge of traditional finance with DeFi. And we're right on the spearhead of that, the bleeding edge. So again, thank you for the super chat, Jayhawk Nation. Appreciate you being here tonight and all the kind words. We got Justin Kincaid. He says, Jake, been praying for you. Thank you, man. Everything still look good for the reverse carry trade to take place. Yes. Yeah. I was looking at the yen earlier today. I was looking at oil earlier today. I was looking at the bond yields in Japan earlier today. And all of it looks right about the time it's going to move here. I've been talking about it for 18 months at this point. So I sound like a broken record, and people are probably tired of hearing me just harp on that one. But I've looked at everything, and that is the way that this rolls out to the high level and the high prices that people are hoping for. If that does not happen and we get ETFs first, you're going to see some price action, but you're not going to see anywhere near the price action we need to be able to settle the back end of the stock market. If exchanges don't go illiquid because Tether has a problem, you're not going to get the demand from that side either. People keep, Franklin Templeton, that ETF got kicked. Why? Why do they keep pushing these ETFs? Because they need a supply shock. They need huge amounts of demand all at the same time with very little supply on the market to drive XRP's price to the level they're going to need it to be able to avoid a crisis that's coming. Okay? Like, I've seen the writing on the wall. I've played out all the different scenarios. I wouldn't put out the domino theory and everything that I have publicly if I wasn't very sure that that's the way it's going to go. I have people all the time ask me, like, well, what if this doesn't play out? Or what if that doesn't play out? And those are justified questions. I don't mean to make light of it. The reason I'm making light of it a little bit is because it's a foregone conclusion for me. I've had enough confirmation that I'm not worried about it. Like, all of this is a foregone conclusion for me. Most of the time, I'm living 2 to 5 years in the future on everything that I'm working on. I'm trying to develop and get financial products and solutions before the banks, before other people, and get stuff done now. Because again, in my mind, this is a foregone conclusion. The price appreciation is going to happen. How do we make sure that everybody has access to the financial products and benefits of this when it happens, so that they're not left out in the rain and have to sell a bunch of their XRP or their golden goose to be able to capitalize on the benefit of it, right? If you can't borrow against it and you can't use it to earn yield, what good is it? Well, you have a bunch of ROI. Cool. Now you got capital gains. Or they make it no capital gains and then they incentivize you to sell it. I think that's really what it's going to be. People I know are excited about no capital gains on these cryptos. I can tell you this, that's going to get a lot more people to sell their XRP at $50 or $100. Like, imagine if they said, hey, Bitcoin has no capital gains. How many people would liquidate their Bitcoin that have a super low basis? A lot of people. Because they have a bunch of capital gains that they don't want to pay. They would rather borrow against it. So if they come out and said, hey, no capital gains on this, you would see a huge move down across markets. It wouldn't be good for markets if they did that, unless there's enough demand on the other side to be able to eat that up. And for XRP, I think there will be. So I think that's why you're going to get that. You got Zach Rector over here on TikTok. What's up, brother? How are you? He says, worst case is a prolonged legal or regulatory pressure keeping adoption and price growth. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think we're going to get that, though, because now we got Paul Adkins over here with the SEC. We've got a bipartisan, support for this asset class. You got Cynthia Loomis has come out and she said that we're going to get the Clarity Act before the end of the year. There's just a lot of things and momentum behind this. And now, we've got futures markets that are going to be maturing at about 6 months in October for multiple assets for ETFs there. So I think you're going to get a bunch of ETPs and exchange traded products and, this year for large prominent assets. We also had Grayscale come out with their S1 filing for their HBAR ETF the other day. More and more spot ETFs for very large assets are being filed on a daily basis at this point. And they're also working on frameworks with the SEC and the CFTC to be able to standardize the way that people can go to market with these structured products. And as long as they meet the stipulations in that, they'll just list. Similar to like gold ETFs and some of the other stuff that is out there today. If somebody wants to launch one, as long as you meet the criteria, boom, you're good to go. They click the switch. So I'm excited for that. I think that that's going to be a great advent and change for digital assets. I think it's going to bring a huge amount of liquidity into this asset class with these ETFs that get launched for multiple utility-driven assets. And again, once there's enough liquidity in these assets, then they can be used at scale in the manner that people want them to be so that they're adopted and they're a high stable price. Wake up, Uncle Danny. Hey, he said, wake up. I could help him spend his money. We'll run on over here. Zach, you need to teach me how to do this with the super chats, so I just get the super chats on here and I can get to all of them. I'm going to call you and we'll figure it out. He said, I don't think it's the real Zach. I don't know. I got Zach's number, though. I can call him. B-Man, he says, this has been a tough week for me in this country. So nice to see all the support from our community. We all support you, Jake. Thank you, man. Look, some of the stuff that's going on this week, look, you just want to pray for people and their families. Anytime I see this amount of friction in society, I get concerned. People don't need to be fighting against each other, and we need to come together and be fighting against, I don't want to say the establishment, that's not the right word, but injustices in the way that things are built out and used against society. Like I mentioned earlier, if people understood how money worked and could, like, we could force the government to go back to sound money, almost all, well, not all of it, but a lot of the economic injustices that people are dealing with, that both sides of the aisle are upset about, would be fixed. There's a reason that there was a period of prosperity in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Our money was redeemable for gold. It was backed. And that was removed in 1971. And since then, the value of our currency, like my parents told me to save. Screw saving. Saving is the best way to the poorhouse. You need to have assets that keep up with inflation or appreciate and have real ROI and cash flow. And the people that have gotten really wealthy over the past 50 to 70 years are people that have understood that. And they've used debt to buy more of those assets because the debt is cheaper to repay later on because the currency is worth less. And it's a stagnant amount that you borrowed. So if you owe $50,000 today, and in 10 years, $50,000 is actually only $5,000. Like, yeah. Anyway, I know it's a crazy concept for people, but there's a lot of people that have used the system that exists today to their advantage. And if you understand the rules, then you can play the game and make a lot of money. I do think we're going to go back to sound money. I think we're going to get gold and silver that back our currency. It's funny to me that the two presidents that tried to get the Treasury to mint our money and move to a silverback currency were removed, Lincoln and Kennedy. If you guys didn't know that, I would go do some research on those two gentlemen. There's a reason that they were removed and done the way that they were too. So anyway, and then we've also got Trump being shot at. And I think he has a similar agenda of going back to sound money with Judy Sheldon and everything that he's doing. So this person says 4K silver, 40K gold. I just did an interview, and you guys can go check it out. I think it was, what was the name of that one? I have to look on my Twitter. Anyway, I just reposted on my Twitter. It's like All In Crypto or something. Was a podcast, and we talked about silver on that podcast. The consideration I don't think most people have around silver in particular, I think $100 silver, cool. I think that's reasonable. 2 times all-time high. It's significantly undervalued and completely manipulated. Both gold and silver have been spoofed. JP Morgan does it all the time. They've been fined for it. I consent to that, okay? But here's the implications if they don't do that. What do you think the cost of an iPhone is? What do you think the cost of solar is? What do you think the cost of other electronic products is that use silver at scale to be able to have all the electricity and everything that they do, right? I'm not an engineer, just obviously the way that I just stated that I'm not an engineer. But if silver was thousands of dollars and they didn't have a meaningful substitute to put in electronic devices to be able to facilitate things working the way they do today, you think things are expensive now. They would be wildly expensive if silver was that high of a value. And so I know people are upset that they've manipulated the price of silver and gold and kept them suppressed. I think gold is actually pretty fair value. And that's going to go against what a lot of people would say. 10 kilograms of gold in 1910, bought a nice home. Guess what 10 kilograms of gold buys today? A nice home. It's about $800,000 or $900,000. Buy you a pretty nice house in most parts of the country. Silver, however, is way under the gold to silver ratio. But again, if they didn't suppress it, the cost of manufacturing a lot of electronic devices would be substantially higher, like a lot higher. And it would crush margins for Apple and a lot Nvidia, like all of these other people. So I know that's not something that people think about. Now that we have the advent of graphene coming on, and being able to be produced in mass at substantially lower costs, I think that they could remove silver and they can let it escalate and go back to being a bare asset and money, instead of it being used in industrial products. I think that they're going to have other solutions that they can fortify with graphene. And so hopefully that's the case. And then in that instance, if they do have a sustainable replacement for silver in electronic products, I think that they could let it run. And then it could return back to its, 40 to 1 or even a 10 to 1. There's been a few times in history where the gold to silver ratio has been 10 to 1. Ideally, when it gets to that point, you swap your silver for gold. Right now, most people are swapping their gold for silver because of the disparity in the ratio. The average over our lifetime, is 40 to 1. If you look at biblical references, it's 14 to 1 or 18 to 1, which I think, it's God's money, right? So probably ends up getting back to that at some point, with some type of revaluation or a free market. There's actually 8 to 1 makes a lot of sense because of the amount of silver and gold on the planet. If you looked at the disbursement of it, there's actually 8 times the amount of silver as there is gold on the planet. So that ratio would make sense if you're going to do it that way. I know a lot, and not as much as Andy Scheckman or some of these Peter Schiff about gold and silver, but I spent a lot of time looking at gold and silver before I found crypto. And the whole reason that I actually even got into crypto was I was watching a debate between Peter Schiff and a Bitcoin guy, and I chose crypto over gold and silver because I was like, the upside on this seems way better. Now, my emergency fund for a long time was in gold and silver. And I sold all of my gold when it was about $3,500 a piece per ounce, and rolled all that into XRP. So that's where my emergency fund is now. And I still have some silver, but not a whole lot. All right, we got 180 Auto. They say, let's say the reverse carry trade does not happen before the end of the year. Okay, so it's going to happen. Maybe they push it to 2026 somehow. Fair, okay. What is a conservative math on inflows, assuming ETFs are approved by mid-November? What's the price at that point? Like the normal cycle top that everybody keeps talking about, somewhere between 10 and 20 bucks. Would be the most I could see happening if you don't get all of those other catalysts to play out at the same time. But again, I'm very confident that they will. There's so many things that point to that. Look, they're going to cut rates here in the US in September. And Japan is going to raise rates in September. Maybe they push it one more month somehow. But October, we get all the ETF launches. That would be the perfect time to line this up for it. Okay. So I know a lot of people are like, how's it ever going to get to these high prices? It's not even moving at all. Believe me, when XRP moves, it moves like a lot very quickly. If you look at the chart in 2017, at the end of 2017, early 2018, when it's moving, it can be 100% in a day. We saw that late last year in November. It doubled in one day. When we got the rumor that BlackRock had launched an ETF before in November of 2023, it doubled in 30 minutes, straight up. So that's why I think the BlackRock ETF is such a big deal. Is when they roll that baby, that's when we're going to see things happen. We got Mauricio. Thank you for the super chat, my man. He says, from Guatemala, I use Kraken, but they restrict international withdrawals. Bitfinex allows them. Do you know them? I do know Kraken pretty well. Caleb and Brown isn't an option either. Bitfinex is going to have a lot of, well, I don't know that. I'm just going to state my opinion. This is not like bad-mouthing anybody or libel. This is just one person's opinion. I think possibly that Bitfinex is going to have a lot of issues with Tether. And I think it's meant to be that way. And I do think, the futures market on Bitfinex for XRP is pretty substantial. So I think there's a reason for that too. And I think that Bitfinex, if you look at the Shane Ellis theory, was actually the exchange he talked about it going to 589 from. So anyway, but to your point here, what can you use there in Guatemala? Bitstamp. I don't know what you're trying to buy. If it's just XRP, I would just get on the Zaman wallet and be able to buy through the Zaman wallet. Uphold probably work for you down there. They're international. They're in the UK. Either one of those probably work well for you. BitMEX maybe also. BBVA, just announced their deal with Ripple. But that's been known for a long time. It keeps recirculating. It comes out and they'll make an announcement here or there. But they've, Banco Brazil. I actually used to work for BBVA when I was 19, so long time ago. And then they later on got acquired by PNC here in the southern part of the U.S. and they left the U.S. They're no longer here domestically. They sold all their branches to PNC. Group 1 Gavin says, love and regards to your family mate. I hope everyone is okay. Love to give a shout out to Mike Cagney and his team over there at Figure on the Figure IPO. Absolutely, dude. Mike had SoFi and now he's got Figure. That dude's crushing it. It was a pleasure to have him on my podcast and talk about all of the collateralized debt obligations against the mortgages that they're putting on chain. $750 million a month being put on provenance. And again, look, not financial advice. Hash, which is the token for provenance, is the only thing that I've bought outside of XRP in the past 3 years. Okay. I didn't buy much of it. I threw a couple grand at it. But I think that there's potentially huge upside there. They're tokenizing insurance on that blockchain. They've got all of that going over there with Figure. I think it's a sleeping giant. And it also reminded me at XDC, I had to go way around my butt to be able to buy the token, just like I did at XDC when it was 0.03 of a penny. So that's why I think there's potentially upside, because it's not listed on any major exchanges. There's, it's not huge market cap, but because of the, potential for the network, I think there's a good opportunity there. For me, I don't know about for you, but you can go check it out if you want to. It's on Figure Markets, and then also I think Osmosis is the other exchange that you can buy hash on. I'm not paid by them either. It'd be great if they would. People say that like that's a bad thing. I wish I got paid in XRP or in other crypto. Would be cool. And if they're doing that for other people, I need to ask Ripple about that. But I'm pretty confident they're definitely not. Kyler Owen, because they don't care about retail. I've had enough conversations with them. They do not care about, they care about the XRP family, as much as they can. But at the end of the day, they're an enterprise business. They sell B2B solutions and software. Retail is benefiting tangentially. They're not directly marketing to retail. ETF approval today. How will that affect price? I don't know. I don't know if it actually got approved. I didn't see the S1 being approved by the SEC. And again, I may have just missed that. I haven't had time to look at Twitter. I've had a lot of other things going on today, along with my regular appointments and everything else we got going. So if I missed it, I apologize. I think it's really cool that the DTCC is going to list Fidelity, Solana ETF, and Canary's XRP ETF tomorrow, if it's real and if there is an actual approval by the SEC of the S1s. Rotcorp says, Mr. Claver, legend. Appreciate it, man. Odd question. Okay. Is there a dress code for getting into the event on September 19th? Look nice. It's not black tie or anything. There are people that wear, starched jeans and a nice shirt. It doesn't have to be anything too schwanky, but don't show up in pajama pants like you're going to Walmart. business casual is what I would say. Proper, whatever, like your Sunday best. Okay, that's what I would say. Because it is more of a professional setting. We got Frank. What's going on, Frank? He says, "Do you think Doge hits $1 before XRP hits 10? Thank you for everything. Looking forward to meeting you." I don't know, man. That's a good question. I haven't even looked at Doge in a little while. Let's take a gander over here at the Doge. Dogecoin. 26 cents. That'd be a 3x, 4x on Doge before XRP hits $10. The chart looks good. Chart looks like it's going to go. I don't know. Hey, I'll tell you this. There's a lady that I know. She's a nice lady. She actually does a lot with donor advised funds and family offices. She, and I've told the mastermind this lots of times. I share things with the mastermind a lot before I share it in public, but I'll tell you guys this one since this is an impromptu live tonight. It's not my normal deal. She knows Elon. She's had dinner with Elon multiple times. And about 4 years ago, they were at dinner in 21. Actually, before that, I think she told me it was in 20. It was in 20. And she was talking to me about crypto, and he said, buy XRP and Doge, is what he told her. And obviously, Doge has done pretty well since early 2020. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the long-term deal for XRP also, but if those are the only two that Elon mentioned to her, and maybe she's, full of it, but that would be hard for me to believe because she's made some introductions to some other very high-level people, and for her to say that she knows Elon and talk about him the way that she did, I don't think she was BSing me. I think it's the real deal. So I do think that we will have a public statement from Elon at some point in the very near future about XRP. We are going on about an hour now, and I'm going to try to get to the rest of these super chats. We got 3,100 people over here on YouTube. Appreciate you guys taking time out. If you like this, please like, subscribe, share with somebody. I don't ever say that. I always forget to say it, so I'm going to step out and do that real quick. And then, if you like this content, if you like this type of stuff, we do a lot more in-depth analysis and provide more exclusive information and a lot of other benefits. If you want to check out the mastermind, it's just at beyondbroke.com, and you can use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month for $2 in either Carbon One or Social. We do more in real life events than any other crypto group, especially in XRP. And we have one in Dallas on the 19th. I won't say the location publicly, but if you are in the mastermind, you can register for that through the Luma event, and then, be able to show up and hang out and have a good time here in Dallas. Beyond Blessed. I love the name, man. He says, legend. Still praying for you and the fam. Thank you so much. All the delays of the ETFs mean something big is coming, right? Right? Can't wait for it to work with you. I've lowered my DWP entry price to under 126 per. Nice, man. Very good. Yeah. Again, I think they're kicking the can on a lot of this stuff because they need to cause the supply shock to be able to push the price of XRP to the value they need it to be able to settle the back end of the stock market and de-risk when Bitcoin inevitably tanks because of Tether. So, I've said that in the domino theory lots of times, and I've given the nod by a few people. So I feel very comfortable with that fact. Nick from New Zealand. What's going on, Nick? He says, "Hey, Jake, when the reverse carry trade unwinds, what will that be good for Japan? How so?" Cheers, mate. It'll be fantastic for Japan. It'll be volatile in the short term. The Nikkei is going to take a hit when it happens, but so much of their economy will be better off. The long-term benefit for their stock market will be great. They'll be able to raise interest rates. People will invest in their economy and borrow from the government. and roll money back into their own economy instead of taking it offshore like they have been for the last 30 years. I'm really excited for Japan and HSBC and SBI and all the other large banks over there that have just been, I don't want to say gutted, but like they've had stagflation for 20 plus years. That's a horrible environment to be able to, stick it out in and operate in for that long. Negative interest rates at some points, and still not any actual growth in GDP. And now that they're in a good spot, this person said they're excited for America. I am too. I'm also excited for America. I will be really glad when we don't have to pick and choose between what's good for the world and what's good for the U.S. Because as the global reserve currency, that's what you do on a daily basis. You look at interest rates, and when you raise interest rates here, it's good for our people. When you lower interest rates here, it's good for our people, but it's bad for the rest of the world. When you raise interest rates here, it's bad for our people and good for the rest of the world. So you have to walk this line as the global reserve currency, and you also have to export dollars. People get pissed off that we're shipping dollars all around the world. We have to. We are the liquidity that everybody else uses to be able to buy commodities and energy. If we do not move money and dollars into other jurisdictions, other people suffocate because they don't get access to stuff. And I know people are like, I pay my taxes, and then now they're shipping it all offshore. We have to do that. Otherwise, other countries and their standard of living goes down substantially. But if the dollar is no longer the reserve currency, we don't have to deal with that anymore. We're not going to be required to do that. And you're going to see tons of treasuries and dollars flow back to the U.S. all at one time, which is going to be scary. But they've got solutions for that, right? That's the whole point. So, what is the currency of America? I don't know if that's like a metaphor or a separate question, but dollars, as far as I'm aware. Josh says, legend. Can't use Kalo and Brown. Is there a concern for liquidity when selling an exchange 500K or less? Depends on when you try to sell, my man. And it depends on what you're trying to sell. I don't know if you're trying to sell XRP or Bitcoin, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, Fartcoin. I don't know what you got. But, exchanges, when you move it onto an exchange, it's theirs. It's not yours. You're a creditor. So if they go bankrupt or their website goes down or whatever happens, you're subject to all of that when you have your assets on an exchange. If you're using a DEX to sell your stuff, which you can on the Zaman wallet, if it's XRP, you could exchange it for something else like USDC or another stablecoin or Bitcoin or whatever else you want through Bitstamp, and then move it off of there to your bank account. I think that would de-risk you from having to use an exchange to be able to do that. And I think over the long term, that's the whole benefit of these exchanges using XRP to settle transactions, is the DEX that's natively built in, and why it fits so great for that value proposition and in that circumstance when they go liquid from Tether. We got DJ. He says, Dear Jake, prayers for you and your family. Thank you, man. I really do appreciate all that. And I don't come on here to solicit that or want you guys to feel sorry for me or any of that stuff. I really did come on and talk about that Tuesday because I know there's other people out there that go through hardships and they shut down. They don't have motivation in those moments, and they don't use the discipline through the habits that they built to show up when stuff gets hard. Because it's going to get hard. Things in life are hard. If you can show up when things are hard and be consistent, that's when you're going to get the success. And you're also going to build the self-confidence that you need to continue to maintain that momentum. So I didn't share that for pity or for, anything like that. I really wanted to use that to help empower people with whatever they're going on in their own life. But I really do appreciate the prayers and the concern and the kind words from people. It really does mean a lot to me and my family. So thank y'all. I just wanted to let you know that I did my CVPS and LLC formation. Awesome, dude. Also in Carbon 2, love the value. Thanks for all that you do. Cannot wait for price appreciation and ETFs. Thank you, man. Again, I've been a part of a lot of other masterminds. The amount of value and time that I spend in the mastermind far exceeds any other group that I've ever been a part of. I always want people to feel like they got way more in value than they paid for something when they work with us anyway, whether that's the mastermind or on the family office or the wealth management. And there's been some times where we've fallen short on stuff, and I fully own those things, and then we get better, right? And we do appreciate constructive criticism. I've had people reach out and be like, hey, look, I'm not trying to beat you up. I know you have tons of volume and this, that, and the other, but these are the problems I've had. And I'm like, thank you. Because I cannot be better, and we cannot be better as a company if we don't know that there's problems with customers. Hopefully it's respectful the way that it's relayed to us. I appreciate that. But at the same time, I really do want good feedback. And we like flowers too. If we have employees that do a good job, we pass those along. For me, I want to praise people publicly, and have hard conversations in private. And also, if we're doing great as a company, it's everybody else the reason that we're doing great. And if something goes bad, it's on me. I fall on the sword and I take ownership of it. So the people that have been the best leaders in my life, that's how they've operated. And I've had a lot of respect for those people. And so I try to do the same and afford my employees the same level of respect and leadership. Cedric's posted a couple other ones here. So RSR render is interesting. Reserve, an XYO, Maya from Fruition Productions was telling me about XYO. Maybe it's awesome. I think they own a bunch of it. I don't know. They may or may not anymore. I don't know. I was probably been on 2 years ago. I don't know enough about those to even discuss why they're good or why they're not. I would have to do more research. And this is another thing. If I don't know something, I'm not going to try to act smart and say something stupid. I'm just going to say, look, I don't know. I need to do more research before I would be able to give you a good answer on those, my man. But I do appreciate the super chat, and I will take those back and do a little research. Drips to Drops, it says, keeping you in my prayers. Thank you, man. I'm astounded at how you continue to show up despite whatever's going on in your personal life. I appreciate all that you do. Thank you. I'd be up anyway. So might as well be up with you guys and hang out and enjoy some things, right? I am just self-reflecting on things. Sometimes I'm avoidant, is how I deal with stuff, and I become numb and calloused. I probably need to get better about that, but it's really good for work. I'll say that. The day my dad died, he died that morning, I went to work and worked a full day. After I told the people at the hospital to pull the plug on him. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. But I tend to be numb for a period of time when I'm dealing with whatever I'm dealing with, and then I have the emotions later on. And again, that's just me self-reflecting on how I've been in certain situations. And I don't know if you guys are that way or not, but that's how I tend to be. And I also feel obligated to be the rock for other people, and be strong even when other people are breaking down. So I don't know. That's just how I tend to deal with stuff. But I do feel it later on. I will go through the full deal. I just don't do it up front like a lot of other people do. Chomp, what's going on, man? He says, Jake, the steak. Okay, I'll take it. The beef. That's it. When Max sends me a package, he always puts Jake in quotations, the beef Claver, and that's how I know it's from Max Avery, my business partner, when he ships me something. It's pretty funny. He says, what's your read on the Franklin ETF delay to November? Time feels eerie. What's brewing and why the selective rollout? Appreciate you as always dropping the fire. Brother, your vids make my damn day. Thank you, man. Appreciate you so much on the kind words. Again, I think it's going to be orchestrated. They're going to roll it all at one time, and they can't let, like, if they eke stuff out and approved one in here and there, it would also beat BlackRock to market, which they don't like. But in addition to that, you can't have price go up and then down and then up and down. They need it to be the largest green candle you've ever seen in your life in order for this to pan out the way that I think they're going to need it to. And for that to happen, you need supply constriction and you need demand skyrocketing for XRP all at the same time. So we're starting to see the supply constriction. Coinbase liquidated a huge amount of XRP that they had. Other exchanges are starting to do the same. So again, what the available supply is, and this is the part that people have a hard time on the market cap, available supply and total supply are two very different things. The available supply for XRP is dwindling, and it's going to continue to be constricted in order to be able to orchestrate the price move that they need. Again, just one man's opinion. I'm just some guy on the internet. Take it with a grain of salt. Johnny Lakers, what's up, man? He says, prayers for you, Jake. Prayers for Charlie's family. Prayers for anyone who's lost someone this year. Prayers for our great country. Amen. Thank you, Johnny. And yeah, a lot of prayers going out to Charlie's family. I can't imagine his wife and his two kids, his two daughters. For him to be gunned down in public like that. I don't care how much you disagree with somebody else's thoughts. That's not the way to do it. And look, some people are pricks and they deserve that outcome. I don't think that of him at all. And some people say a lot of things. There's a lot of people that say stuff to me, and I'm like, man, you must be having a really bad day. And if you are this way all the time, I feel really bad for you. If you hate your life that much that you have to get on the internet and try to troll me this hard because you don't have anything better to do. There's a lot of people out there, and look, I'm not saying any of his opinions are right or wrong. I'm not going to get on either side of the aisle here. But he was a father and a husband, and to be shot down in cold blood like that in public in front of all those people. And here's the other piece. You're just going to make him a martyr. Like if your point was to cause a problem or dethrone him or deplatform him, shooting him makes it worse. Now you're going to have this huge amount of support for the movement that was going on there, and it's going to backfire on anybody that like thought that that was a good idea. So anyway, yes, definitely praying for him and his family. We know that he's with God. He's Christian. He's going to be just fine. But you know, the people that he left behind, and just to have the video and see that and have to deal with the other people, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So yeah, if you guys aren't, you know, I have normal stuff going on in my life. Also not great things, but more expected things than that. For him to be 31 years old, and his life cut short like that, it's younger than me. Like I'm 34. So it's a kind of a reality check for me too. There's been a couple of those in my lifetime where somebody my age, somebody I knew, that I looked up to or had respect for, has died for some reason. And it's definitely always a gut check for your own mortality on things. And that's why I wake up every day and I'm super grateful, super blessed for everything that's in my life. It doesn't matter what the actual circumstances are. If I'm breathing, if I'm healthy, if I can see, if my limbs work, if I have a roof over my head, if I have a vehicle, if I have a family, if I feel loved. All those things are wonderful. And I feel ever grateful for all that. And everything else could be burning down around me. There's been days. And I am still so grateful for all the wonderful things that I do have in my life. Because you never know. Today could be your favorite person's last day or your last day. So treasure it. That's why they call it the present, because it's a gift. We got Token Trainer. He says, "Hey, legend. Lots in common. Men's physique competitor. Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome. Hair transplant in Turkey. Yes, dude. We could be twins. We're Twinkies. When the reverse carry trade unwinds, how will that affect my DCPP? How can I hedge Beyond Broke Mastermind to the moon? DCPP. Look, and I apologize if I ever do this to you. If I use an acronym and you're like, what the hell is that? I don't even know what he just said. I realize I do that, and I'm sorry. I try to go back and explain and like list out the words for whatever acronym I list, because I know people listen to this for the first time and they're like, I don't know what that means. I also don't know what DCPP means. Let me give it a Google. Try it that way. That's my go-to. Also, I want to say this. The smartest people that I know, if they don't know something, they will go to ChatGPT and they will go to Google. They don't even ask me. If they don't know, they're like, or they, if we're in conversation, they'll ask. But the best employees and the smartest people, they're just going to Google it and figure it out on their own. New Jersey's Division of Child Protection and Permanency. That's probably not what it is. We've got defined contribution pension plan in Canada. All right. So we've been looking at family pension plans and how to construct those. I don't think you can hold crypto in that type of account. But when the reverse carry trade unwinds and you're in stocks and bonds and other stuff, all that's going to burn for a little while. It'll V-bottom out of there. I think we're going to have a huge bull market in equities for the next 10 years, for the next decade. I think things are going to rampage higher. But there is going to be like a 50% drawdown in the short term when the reverse carry trade unwinds. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be an opportunity. And that's why Uncle Warren's got $400+ billion sat on the sideline in treasuries ready to take advantage of it or be a liquidity provider for people that go bankrupt, like the regional banks that flew into Omaha last year when SVB and Silvergate went bankrupt. There's happened to be a whole bunch of other regional banks that flew into Omaha, Nebraska and saw Uncle Warren that weekend. And then sure enough, on the next quarterly report, he owned some regional banks. Because they needed money, because they were illiquid and they thought they were also going to go bankrupt. And they didn't know if the FDIC would be able to cover those deposits. So anyway, Warren Buffett is one of the backstops for the U.S. government. And Berkshire may even issue a stable coin. So this isn't something that anybody else has talked about that I've heard, but I'm going to put it out here. Okay. Old Uncle Warren is going to retire this year. And they have other people stepping in to be able to take control of and manage Berkshire Hathaway. Now that Charlie's passed away, God rest his soul. They've got $400+ billion in treasuries. Guess what you need to back stablecoins? Treasuries. Guess how lucrative a stablecoin business would be for Berkshire Hathaway? Extremely. Tether. What's Tether's market cap today? Tether market cap. They are currently at 174, almost 175 billion. Uncle Warren could double that today if he wanted to mint stable coins and put that out. And he would be he's already earning that 4.5–5% interest on those treasuries. And he's got them laddered. They're short-term and long-term duration. He's doing it a specific way. He's probably generating somewhere between 6 and 8% on his treasury ladders, to be honest. But they could launch a stable coin. And then if they took that stable coin and put it into other stuff, that's where you get into looping. So we were talking to other people the other day, and we may even have them on the channel. We'll bring them on. We'll, some interesting stuff for XRP also, with another blockchain that you guys probably know about. But if he was able to issue or mint a stable coin against all those treasuries and then go take that stable coin and go do something else with it to be able to generate yield, now he's getting the 5 for 4% off of that, plus the stable coin and its interest in whatever it's invested in. Uncle Warren's going to be raking it in still at 20% interest over the long term with that strategy, right? So anyway, I think that it's highly likely that Berkshire Hathaway will be a liquidity provider and issue a stable coin here in the U.S. That's my guess. We'll see if I'm right or not. Again, just some guy on the internet. I don't know anything. Don't listen to me. Home base income 101 says, use DWP, hire them to invest my XRP to earn passive income. DWP helps me find investment that works for me. These are all questions because they have question marks at the end of them. So we're building products. We are the only legal way in the US, period, that you can earn interest on your XRP. We're it. There's nobody else that's doing it legally here in the US. If you're running a DeFi protocol here in the US, it is an illegal securities offering. We have a real securities offering with PPM, subscription agreement, operating agreement, all the stuff that you need to sign, KYC, AML, OFAC. We check the wallet, Chainalysis. We have a fund admin. Each one of these funds costs us $250,000 a year to run the right way and have audits done and do all the fun stuff that's required to be able to do it correctly. But I know it's done right. I know that it's legit. I know the money is managed the right way. It's got the purview of the SEC and FINRA. It's got the stamp of approval from auditors. Like, there's no rugging. It's onshore. There's full recourse. It's insured. All the other stuff that you want. So we have a couple options for that. We'll have some more options before the end of the year. We'll have some lower risk options, and we'll have some higher risk options by the end of the year here in 2025 to be able to generate returns on your XRP. Right now, we're targeting with what we have out there right now, somewhere between 6 and 20% on the year. I know it's a wide range, hoping for like right in the middle of that, somewhere between 10 and 12, maybe up a little bit more than that. Really, if I could get 13% on people's money, we'd be right in the sweet spot of where I'd like to be. Because with the amount of risk that we're taking, and a gentleman asked me this today. He said, how much risk is in these? It's not no risk, okay? These are returns. They're not yield. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no risk, 10 being all the risk in the world, we're at like a 1.7. There's some risk. There's no counterparty risk. There's no risk of loss of the XRP because of something bad happening. It's only if the strategy doesn't work, which we had happen in Q1. Like the first quarter, we had this, people that had 100,000 XRP in the fund lost 600 XRP. We had to sell it to cover the loss. The next month, we doubled that and we bought 1,200 XRP, and we added a cash position to be able to make sure we don't lose XRP in the future if there's a downturn. So we've shored that up, and we'll continue to build out these solutions and build those provisions in there to make sure the number one rule we have is don't lose XRP. The number 2 rule is refer to rule number 1. So we always want to make sure that we're keeping the golden goose, and the golden goose is laying golden eggs. And as we have more opportunities in the market, we definitely want to partner with people in different capacities and be the conduit for them to be able to launch strategies here in the US for people to have access to them. So I think we're on the road to be able to do that. We got Alyssa. I didn't say that right. I'm going to butcher that. Thank you for the super chat. I say, Jake, just need my faith lifted. Is SKUX a good wallet? How long till 2K XRP? I actually know the guys over there at SKUX, and I like them a lot. I know some people that invested early in that platform. So if something goes wrong, I could punch him in the mouth for you. I don't know much more than that. I haven't looked at it for actually holding digital assets. But I know them and they seem legit to me based on, I like to meet people in person, look them in the eye, shake their hand. You get a real good feel. And if I ever feel off, I don't do business with somebody. And I try to be nice about it. I should probably be more rude if I just don't get a good feeling from someone. But I try to just distance myself and not have to deal with it. Again, avoidance. I need to get better about that. And then the 2K XRP reverse carry trade, my man. Like, until that happens, we're not anywhere close to that. Maris, they say, hey Jake, my brother, I might need to book in a financial advisor. I'm curious if this stupid net cash flow tax in Australia will affect Aussies. Also, is Russia and Poland with reverse carry trade? Legend. Is Russia and Poland? All global markets will be affected. Anybody if they took yen from the Bank of Japan and turned it into rubles and put it into the stock market there in Russia, it's going to have problems too. I don't think it's going to have anywhere near as much exposure as the US stock market, but London Stock Exchange, Singapore, Russia, Australia, all these other stock exchanges are going to have exposure to the yen and the reverse carry trade, and they are also going to go down. And here's the other piece of this. People get excited or frightened in like groups. There's groupthink on stuff. The whole reason that FTX collapsed was because CZ said, hey, they're insolvent. You should pull your money off the platform. And everybody was like, oh, crap, they're insolvent. We should pull our money off the platform. And then guess what? Everybody ran to the platform and pulled their stuff off the platform. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it'll be the same way with global stock markets. As soon as people get scared that something's going to happen, they react. They're not proactive. Almost everyone globally is reactive. There's probably 5% of the population that's proactive. Everybody else just reacts to other things that go on in their life. If you can be part of that 5% that's proactive or thinks through things before you make emotional decisions, you're going to be way better off. But also, sometimes you just react with the herd because, like, if you didn't pull your money out of Terra Luna, if you thought, it'll rebound, people will come to their senses, didn't happen, lost all your money. So as soon as the bank run starts, you need to be the one pulling out that musical chair before everybody else. And yeah, I think that global markets are going to be affected at scale with 50 and 60% downside across everything. It's not going to matter. We got Jerry. He says, sugar tits. All right. Great name. Do you think institutions will ever offer cold staking, meaning they could offer yield, but assets stay on cold wallet? Hair looks awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. Yes. Yeah. We do it now. We reflect yield out of institutional custody, but you have to have some type of lock mechanism or escrow on the account. There's a couple different amendments that are being proposed on the XRPL right now to be able to facilitate that. So you got permissioned accounts and you have escrow. If you could lock that XRP and have pseudo accounts is basically what it is. So you would lock that XRP and delegate that value somewhere else. The XRP stays in your cold wallet, but the value is delegated to where it could be used by somebody else. Very similar to like delegated staking or delegated proof of stake. Your asset sits in your account like Solana or XDC, and then you basically give somebody your voting proxy to be able to, do what they need to on the network. There's not double delegated staking yet, so you can't reflect, like your XDC couldn't be delegated to a wallet, and then that wallet aggregate all of those votes and then delegate that. That doesn't exist yet. And I say yet because I think it will. But yeah, in the future, it's going to be a while. XRP probably 6 or 8 months before there's UIs and like stuff built in to be able to facilitate that. But I do think it's coming. We are almost 2 hours in. I'm going to take a couple more super chats here, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We got Kenneth, Mr. Williams. He says, on your Tuesday live, you mentioned a new risk-free product. Just park your XRP, get 3 to 4%. Will that be on your total value or percentage of the value? Total value. Yeah, there's no LTV on that. It's the total amount. So let me verify that, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the total amount. So yeah. And again, I think you guys will like that counterparty on that one when we make the announcement. It's going to be cool. We got Yeet DGen. Thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you so much. They say, hello, fellow legend. I like that. That's good. Question on the catalyst we're anticipating. Where does the NASDAQ tokenization of real world assets come into play in your sequence of events? Is this a key domino we need in place for real growth? Is that more 2026 event realistic? I do think it's going to be 2026 for tokenization of the stock market. Based on conversations with a few other people around tokenizing the Texas Stock Exchange, I think it's going to be later, Q2, Q3, 2026 when we see tokenized stocks. I could be wrong. Would love to be wrong. But I do think that, that's actually going to probably, be, I think you could have multiple networks involved. Again, like settlement between the clearinghouses and brokers could be facilitated via one blockchain, and then the tokenization of stocks themselves could be on a completely separate blockchain. It just depends on which one's, curated for that, like Polymesh and Polymath, the token. The whole premise behind that is tokenized equities. Like that's the whole thing for that chain, and that's their focus. So most of the time, if like you're going after a specific niche, you're probably going to get that one at least. You also have Hedera, which I think has a lot of traction for potentially tokenizing stocks. Anything that has inherent KYC, AML standards built into it, I think is going to be head and shoulders above other people in that space. And I do think, 2026, I don't think that stocks themselves are going to be tokenized, just the back-end settlement of the stocks to be able to settle real time. Rob Keith, he says, thanks for all that you do. Is there any truth to the US dollar crashing and banks crashing and losing our savings we may have in the bank? No, Rob. Look, there's a lot of fear mongering out there. Okay. If the reverse carry trade had unwound without stablecoin regulation in place, and we didn't even have it on the floor, that would have been a possibility. Because the whole backbone for the US dollar and global finance is our bond market and US treasuries. It's a riskless asset. But if you don't have enough buyers for it, and there's not enough demand to be able to buy those up on the open market, like Japan's bonds sometimes, that's why the Bank of Japan has to buy it themselves. You have problems. You have to print a bunch of money and inflate your own currency to buy back your own debt. Not a good cycle. And that's why the Bank of Japan needs other people to buy their bonds, and that's why they're raising the interest rates, and people are speculating that it's going to be 3-4% 10 years from now. 10-year yield is at 1.6 almost. The 30 years at 3 plus on the JPY or their GB. Is it GBJ? BGJ? I don't remember. Japanese bonds. Anyway, US bonds, treasuries, need to have a certain amount of demand. Otherwise, if there's no buyers, it's a problem and it starts collapsing. Yields start collapsing until there's buyers, or going up until there's buyers. It would actually go up until there's buyers. And melt up on treasury yields is not a good thing. So now that we have stablecoin regulation, there's going to be enough demand with the launch of stablecoins here in the US to be able to eat up the $2.3 trillion that's going to flow onto the market when the reverse carry trade unwinds. And so that'll shore up the system. There won't be any collapse in our currency or the banking system like a lot of people think is going to happen. You also got Sean. What's up? He says, hey, legend, for educational entertainment purposes only, can you break down XRP futures trading timing for trading strategy for ETF approval and reverse carry trade events for someone who has a high risk tolerance? I cannot, Sean. I am not an algorithmic trader. I'm not a futures trader. I know enough to be dangerous. We work with a group for our compounding strategy and our growth strategy that does exactly what you're talking about there. And they can tell you all about it. I can introduce you. I won't even say their name. But if you want access to that type of strategy and you want the upside, get in the growth fund with Digital Wealth Partners. You need to be accredited. You need to have at least 100,000 XRP. You need to be a DWP client. And if you meet all those things, you need to have the LLC in place. If you got all that in place, then you can get access to exactly what you're talking about there with the best people in the world for XRP futures. We have them. They trade for us. That's how we earn more XRP for our clients. So with that, if you do want to work with Digital Wealth Partners, if you want a financial advisor, if you want institutional custody, if you want insurance on your assets, you want your spouse to be on the account, you want beneficiaries, you want to make sure that your stuff's protected at the highest level possible, all you got to do is go to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us page there, and reach out. You need at least 100,000 XRP or at least $500,000 in total portfolio value. That can include your traditional assets. So if you got IRAs and 401ks that have a bunch of money and you only got 100,000 in crypto, we can work with you. Right? Reach out. Go to the contact us page there at digitalwealthpartners.net. And or hey, look, maybe you don't have that much. Maybe you're not there yet. If you want financial advice on your crypto and you want advisors that can actually work with you, go to digitalwealthpartners.net and book a consult. They will talk to you about your portfolio. They will help you position things the right way. They will go through and help you with an exit strategy if you need that, because a lot of people do, especially if you're new here and you don't understand everything. And even if you've been here a long time and you think you got stuff right, but you want to make sure, we have the financial advisors. People have wanted this for a long time. Somebody that actually is credentialed, that understands this space, that can provide you with financial advice. We've got them. So just go book a consult. Go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go check it out. If you do want to custody it, you are going to have the assets in an LLC. If you want to make sure that that's done right, end to end, for $2,000, you can use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAG LLC. That's 50OFFDAG, like Digital Ascension Group LLC. At checkout, just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, go to the services on the LLC page. And then last but not least, if you're like, I'm just getting into crypto, I want to learn more, I want the education, I want to not feel ostracized when I talk about this stuff, join the mastermind. Get in the social. It's $2 if you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar. It's right up here at the top of the screen, just at beyondbroke.com. Go check it out. We would love to have you. I'll be on the town hall on Saturday. And then next week, we have our event here in Dallas on Friday. We got like 450 people registered for this event here in Dallas. The venue, I think, holds 300. So that's going to be fun. They're going to be surprised by the amount of people that show up on that one, but it's okay. They got enough room downstairs, upstairs, and it's a really cool spot. You guys are really going to enjoy that. So I look forward to having everybody in town for that. But with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. If I did miss your super chat, please join the mastermind. Send it to me there. If you want to DM me on other social media, we'll try to get to it again, have some other things going on that might inhibit that. So if you want to make sure that I see it and I answer it, join the mastermind. It's $2, and then just DM me. The other thing I'll say before I go is I will not DM you. If you join the mastermind, it's not me. I didn't DM you. It's a scam. Report them. It's not me. I can't control Discord, unfortunately. But if you want to DM me, and I will respond to you, but I'm never going to reach out to you first. And I won't do that on any social media platform. So if you get a message from Jake Claver in your DMs, it's a scam. It's a scam. If you also get an email from Digital Family Office with 3 Fs, and they tell you to go to Web3 Official, it's a scam. It's not me. Okay? I will never ask you for your XRP. Never. I don't work at Digital Wealth Partners. I don't onboard people at Digital Wealth Partners. I'm never going to ask you for your XRP. If you ask me something, I will answer it. I love to help people. But I'm never going to ask you for any of your assets. So I've gotten all your faces. They're wild. People are getting really creative at this point. And that's why I'm adamant about this. I do not want people to get scammed. So if you get a message from me, it's not me. It's a scam. Block them. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful night, a wonderful week. And we will see you guys on the next one.